Hello children, today we are going to study a new chapter. Okay, so I hope you have studied the previous chapter through the eyes of travelers, and today I will be sending you the questions. Okay, you have to write the answers to that and send it to me within 1 week. Okay, is that clear? So now we will be starting our new chapter, Bhakti Sufi Traditions. Okay, see this, changes in religious beliefs and devotional text. That is from 8th to 18th century AD. I told you always you have to study this particular centuries. That is, the question will come just like that. Okay, what happened between 8th and 18th century, or what happened between 15th and 17th century, it will be coming like that. So this is from 8th to 18th century. Understand? See, who is this? Do you know who this is? This is Mirabai. I think you know the importance of Mirabai in Bhakti tradition. Okay, this is a Sufi saint. Okay, we are studying about Bhakti movement as well as Sufism. Okay, this is a Sufi saint, and this is, do you know who this is? This is Kabir. Okay, he is also a very important personal in this Bhakti movement. Okay. Now see, this is what we are going to study in this chapter. Changes in religious beliefs and devotional texts. This is what in this chapter we are going to study about how textual traditions have been used by historians to understand Bhakti Sufi traditions. In this chapter we are going to study about how textual traditions have been used by historians to understand Bhakti Sufi traditions. You have seen this picture, no? What is this picture? Do you know what this picture is? This is a picture of Krishna, Balarama and Subhadra, their sister. Subhadra is their sister. Okay, see, you know Krishna, whether you are a Christian or Muslim or whatever it is, you know the picture of Krishna is in you, isn't it? You have seen him. Okay, see, and this is Krishna. According to the people in Orissa, this is Krishna. See, entirely different form, isn't it? Whatever we have in mind is entirely different from this form of Krishna. So these things we are going to study in this particular chapter. Okay, you can see the difference in this picture itself. See, this is the Krishna and Radha we are familiar with, and this is the Krishna, and this is not Radha, this is Subhadra. This is the form in which people in Puri, they are praying to. Okay, so this is the difference. Now, this is the first subheading, a mosaic of religious beliefs and practices. Okay, what does that mean? What is the meaning of mosaic of religious beliefs and practices? That is, lots of religious beliefs and practices come together and form with that it took centuries to form this, okay, and form a particular religion called Hinduism. That is a mosaic of religious beliefs and practices. Lots of, that is a culmination of or amalgamation of religious beliefs and practices grown together through centuries to become, that is, it took almost 1,000 years to be in a culmination of the Hindu religion. Okay, that is what we are going to study for the first time, Bhakti movement. See, actually, Bhakti movement, where did it start? Actually, it started in South India. Okay, in the 8th century, it started in South India, and slowly it began to spread through North and East. Okay, by 15th century, it spread throughout North India as well as Eastern India, and by 17th century, that is between 15th century and 17th century, it reached its zenith. Okay, it started in South India by 8th century, and then it slowly it began to spread throughout North India and Eastern India, and by 15th century it began to spread all over North India and East India, and between 15th and 17th this Bhakti movement as well as the Sufism reached its zenith. Okay, now say this. Perhaps the most striking feature of this phase is the increasing visibility of a wide range of gods and goddesses in sculpture as well as in text. See this form of Vishnu. See, in the initial stages, people in India worshipped Agni, Indra, Soma, like that. Okay, in Puranic tradition, they began to worship Agni, Indra, Varun, Soma, etc. Why is that? Because at that time people were not aware of the natural phenomena in the world, so that because of that they began to worship all these gods. That is Indra is the god of rain, like that. Okay, so they worship Indra, Agni also they are not aware of, they were afraid of fire, so they began to they worship Agni. They were not aware of how this rain is coming, so they worshipped Indra, like that. So during Puranic days or Puranic age, they worship Agni, Indra, etc. But when Bhakti movement started, it slowly changed to Vishnu, Shiva and Goddess. Okay, see, this is the form. From when Bhakti movement started, they began to worship Vishnu in this form. That is why I have put this picture here. Okay, now see, so perhaps the most striking feature of this phase is the increasing visibility of a wide range of gods and goddesses in sculpture as well as in text. So earlier it was not like that, only limited gods were there, but now we know that lots of gods and goddesses were there, isn't it? So this is because of this Bhakti movement. Now at one level, this indicates the continued and even extended worship of the major deities, that is Vishnu, Shiva and the goddess, each of whom was visualized in a variety of forms. So these deities, that is Vishnu, Shiva and different forms of goddess, they began to worship them in various forms. For example, see, this is the Vishnu we are familiar with, and this is the form of Vishnu. People in Orissa, they were worshipping, still they are worshipping this form, isn't it? So various forms of gods and goddesses began to come. Okay, now did you understand this? At one level, this indicates the continued and even extended worship of the major deities, that is Vishnu, Shiva and goddess, each of whom was visualized in a variety of forms. Is that clear? See, that is, earlier they worshipped only a limited forms of gods and goddesses, but now they are having lots of varieties. Now, this is the picture I showed you earlier. Okay. One of the most striking examples of this process is evident at Puri, Orissa, where the principal deity was identified by the 12th century as Jagannatha. That is literally the Lord of the world. This is Jagannatha, Vishnu, in his another form, that is Krishna. Jagannatha, extreme right, with his sister Subhadra and his brother Balarama. See, another form of Lord Vishnu. Okay, this is Lord Vishnu. This is Balarama and this is Subhadra in another form. See, that is what I said earlier, that is now people began to worship gods and goddesses in various forms. This is one form of Vishnu. This is another form of Vishnu which we in Kerala are familiar with. Okay. Now, the next subheading is the integration of cults. What is it? The integration of cults. There were two processes at work. Okay, this is a 3-mark question. Okay, even though only 2 points are there, it is a 3-mark question. So, two processes at work during that time. One is disseminating Brahminical ideas. See, you know that these Brahmins have written, Brahmin Pandits have written Dharma Shastras, Dharma Sutras, Manusmriti, Puranas, Vedas, etc. Isn't it? So, the first form is disseminating Brahminical ideas, means whatever ideas written by the Brahmins were followed by all the people. Okay, not all the people, most of the people. You know that from the last chapters, you know that some of the people deviated from what is written in Dharma Shastras, Dharma Sutras and Manusmriti. You know that, isn't it? So, most of the people, they followed this Brahminical ideas. Understand? Now the second one is Brahmanas accepting and reworking the beliefs of other social category. This is the second point. What is it? Brahmanas accepting and reworking the beliefs of other social category. Understand? So what does that mean? See, the first one is people following whatever written in the Dharma Shastras, Dharma Sutras, Manusmriti, Puranas, Vedas, etc. Did you understand? The other one is the Brahmanas, they try to follow the rituals and religious beliefs of other social categories. That is, the people who were not following the Brahminical text. For example, Shatavahanas. You remember, Shatavahanas were known as Mlechas, isn't it? That is, they never followed Sanskritical text. Okay, so now what happened is that the Brahmanas also, they also began to follow the social, cultural and religious beliefs of other people, those who are not following the Brahminical text. So these were the two processes at work during that period. Okay, we are studying from which century? 8th century onwards, isn't it? So the first one is disseminating Brahminical ideas. I'll tell you once again, that is, most of the people followed the religious beliefs which was written in the Puranas, Vedas, Dharma Shastras, Dharma Sutras and Manusmriti. Okay, that is the first one. Second one is Brahmanas try to follow the social and religious beliefs of other categories. That is the example I showed you. See, this is what Brahmanas followed. Okay, and this is what other people followed. So, most of the people, including us, follow this text, isn't it? This form of Vishnu, isn't it? But some of the people are following this form of worship also. So now Brahmanas, they are also trying to follow the beliefs of common people also. People which are whom they are different from the Brahmins. People who are different from the Brahmins. Understand? So these are the two processes at work. Don't forget, disseminating Brahminical ideas, that is the first one. Second one is Brahmanas accepting and reworking the beliefs of other social category. These are the 2 points. Okay. Now, we are going to study about the great tradition and little tradition. Great tradition and little tradition. Okay. The name was coined by Robert Redfield. It was coined by Robert Redfield. What was coined by Robert Redfield? The name Great Tradition and Little Tradition. Okay. Greater tradition means peasants observed rituals and customs that emanated from dominant social categories, including priests and rulers. This is what I explained earlier about this one, the first point. Do you remember that? Disseminating Brahminical ideas. That is, according to Robert Redfield, great tradition was peasants and other people observed rituals and customs that emanated from dominant social categories including priests and rulers. That is, whatever the priests and rulers were following, this common people, peasants also followed. Okay, so what does little tradition means? The exact opposite of that. Okay, little tradition means peasants also followed local practices that did not necessarily correspond with those of the great tradition. Exact opposite. That is, along with the worships and religious beliefs which were followed by the Brahmins and the rulers and the priests, the peasants have their own traditional beliefs, their own religious beliefs, their own social customs, etc. So they, along with the other one, they followed their own customs also. That is known as little tradition. So did you understand what the difference between great tradition and little tradition? Great tradition means priests, rulers, other Brahmins, they followed certain types of rituals and religious beliefs which were followed by the peasants. And what do you mean by little tradition? That is, apart from the beliefs of the priests and rulers, these peasants, they also got their own religious beliefs and customs and social practices which they followed. So they followed both, the other one and this one. Okay, that is the greater tradition and little tradition. Great tradition and little tradition. So both great and little traditions changed over time through a process of interaction. See, that is what I said earlier. See this point. Brahmanas accepting and revoking the beliefs of other social category. Okay, see, after a long time, during the course of time, these Brahmins, they began to interact with the common people, that is peasants, and they also inculcated their social beliefs and religious practices. They accepted, okay, they accepted the religious practices as well as social customs of the common people. See, as you know, this Jagannatha temple in Puri, that is the example I showed you, isn't it? That was very famous earlier. Now also it is very famous. Okay, see, in Orissa, all the people, whether they are from Kshatriya caste or Brahmins or Vaishyas or Shudras, whoever belongs to Puri, they go to that Jagannatha temple. But actually, who started that practice? Worshipping Jagannatha in the form of that particular form? The common people, that is peasants, that is Shudras, they started that. But now, because the Brahmins have started to integrate their beliefs also into there, now everyone is going to that particular temple. It's a very big temple now. Okay, but it is different from our concept. Okay. So, now did you understand the great tradition and little tradition? Great tradition was followed by priests and rulers, which were also followed by the peasants, whereas in little tradition, peasants followed, apart from the great tradition, peasants followed their own customs and beliefs. It's very simple. You understood, no? Okay, so shall we go to the next topic? See, the integration of cults, the same subtopic, and now we are going towards tantric worship. Okay, see the picture of this goddess. Did you see the picture of this goddess? See her face. See, actually in this we have put the picture has kumkum on her face. Okay, goddess face. Actually it's not like that, it's not kumkum. I didn't get that picture, that's why I put this picture. See, actually they will put ochre on her face. Okay, that is saffron color or yellow color clay. Such instances, that is, we studied that during the course of time, the Brahmins, they integrated the culture and social and religious beliefs of the common people. Okay, such instances of integration are evident amongst goddess cults as well. See, in the earlier time, this concept of goddess was not there. Okay, but from 8th century onwards, the concept of goddess became very popular. Okay, so this integration came into this cult of goddess worship also. Now see, worship of the goddess often simply in the form of a stone smeared with ochre was evidently widespread. That is pale yellow clay or kavi color clay. Okay, so it became widespread. You can see from this picture. Can you see this picture? I hope you can see it clearly. See the picture. How they have put that kumkum or that ochre on her face. See this. See. Okay. Now, these local deities were often incorporated within the Puranic framework by providing them with an entity as a wife of the principal male deities. See, even though they have brought goddess now and they have given utmost importance to goddess, they made this goddess the wives of this principal deities. That is, I think most of the Hindus know that we pray to Lakshmi, Parvati, Saraswati, etc. Isn't it? Who is Lakshmi? Goddess Lakshmi? Goddess Lakshmi, not Lakshmi Santosh. Okay. Okay, Goddess Lakshmi is the wife of Lord Vishnu. See, her identity is, of course, she is known as the goddess of wealth, but what is her real identity? The wife of Lord Vishnu, who is a principal deity. Then Parvati. Everyone says that she is the most powerful goddess, etc. But she is considered as the wife of Lord Shiva. So these goddesses were brought into forefront, but they were slotted to a place. That is, they were known as the wives of these principal deities, Vishnu and Shiva. Okay, so along with Vishnu and Shiva, goddess also became very popular, but at the same time they were considered as the wives of the principal deities. Okay. Sometimes they were equated with Lakshmi, the wife of Vishnu, and other instances they were equated with Parvati, the wife of Lord Shiva. Sorry. So did you understand? They brought the culture of goddess there, of course, but as the wives of the principal deities. Lakshmi got her individuality as the goddess of wealth. Parvati also got her individuality, that is, she is the goddess of what do we say, strength or destruction or things like that. Saraswati, she is the goddess of education. Okay, but along with that individuality, they made them the wives of the principal deities. Okay, why is that? Why is that? Because in Puranic traditions, in Vedas, Manusmriti and all, what they have written, that is, women are, this is not what I am saying, of course, but in those Puranas and all, it's written that women are only, women should belong with their husbands. Now also it is like that, okay. So did you read this? These local deities were often incorporated within the Puranic framework by providing them with an entity as a wife of the principal male deities. Sometimes they were equated with Lakshmi, the wife of Vishnu. In other instances with Parvati, the wife of Shiva. Okay. Now, see, the forms of worship, that is tantric worship. We are going towards tantric worship. The forms of worship often associated with goddess were classified as tantric. Okay, forms of worship often associated with goddess were classified as tantric. T-A-N-T-R-I-C. One more question, okay. Tantric worship was widespread in the subcontinent. It was open to women and men. So this tantric worship is associated with the worshipping of goddess, and it was very widespread in the subcontinent. It was open to women as well as men. Those who followed tantric rejected the caste and class within the ritual context. See, there comes the importance. When they began this, that is, this tantric culture is entirely different. Okay, it is entirely different from our common way of worship. Okay, so those people who followed this tantric cult, they rejected caste as well as class system in the society. They did not agree to the caste system, they did not agree to the class system. Okay, they entirely worshipped in another way. Many of these ideas influenced Shaivism and the Buddhism. See, you have seen lots of people wearing skulls and all, wandering through the streets of North India and all, isn't it? So that is tantric practices. These practices influence Shaivism as well as Buddhism. How did it influence Buddhism? How did it influence Buddhism? See, in Buddhism also, these Buddhists, they don't believe in caste and class system, isn't it? According to Buddha, all the people are equal. Whereas in Hinduism, it is not like that. That is, we have caste system as well as class system. But in these tantric practices, they don't believe in caste system as well as the class system. And it influenced Shaivism as well as Buddhism. Okay, did you understand? See, so during those periods, another type of worship came into being, that is tantric worship, and it is associated with the worshipping of goddess. Okay, and in the subcontinent, lots of people follow this tantric worship, and both men and women worship goddess in this form. Okay, they were attracted to this tantric worship. And those who followed tantric worship, they did not believe in caste system and class system, and this tantric worship influenced Shaivism as well as Buddhism. Did you understand that? So we have studied about tantric worship. Okay, you followed me, isn't it? Okay. Now the same subtopic, difference and conflict. Okay. So these different types of worships, these different types of worships and practices would come to be classified as Hindu over the course of the next millennium. See, you know that when we started this, there was, even now we say that Hinduism is not a religion, isn't it? It's a way of life. So these practices, different practices and beliefs culminated together, different types of worships, lots of things were there. All these culminated to be classified as Hindu over the course of the next millennium. Principal deities of the Vedic period, such as Indra, Agni and Soma, this I told you earlier. You remember, no? That is, in the earlier period, during Vedic period and Puranic period, they worship Agni, Indra and Soma, but now slowly they were replaced by the new deities, that is Lord Vishnu and Lord Shiva and goddesses. See, principal deities of the Vedic period, such as Indra, Agni and Soma, became marginal figures. Instead, Shiva, Vishnu and goddess became very prominent. Okay, so during the course of time, not the initial period, during the course of time from between 8th century and 17th century, there was a slow transition. Okay, slowly the other gods and goddesses were replaced by Lord Vishnu and Lord Shiva and the goddess. Okay, of course tantric worship is there, goddess worship is there, but their importance is that of that is they were the wives of the principal deities. But slowly and steadily there was a change from the Puranic period to 17th century. Okay. Now, the next subtitle is conflicts that arose during the Bhakti movement. What is it? Conflicts that arose during the Bhakti movement. What will be the conflicts? See, of course, in the Vedic period, how was it? See, there were elaborate rituals and all, isn't it? Lots of rituals were there. See, that is why you know that why people went to Buddhism and Jainism? Because of the, of course, first point is because of the caste system prevalent during that time. The second was that this elaborate rituals and all. Okay, it was very difficult. That is only Brahmanas could do all these things. So, and the rituals were very complicated. It was not possible for the common people to do all these rituals and all. Only rich people could do all these things. So the common people, that is peasants as well as other people, they were marginalized to the sidelines. Okay. So because of these problems, they flocked towards Buddhism and Jainism. You know that. Okay. See, so what were the conflicts during that time? There were conflicts between those who followed the Vedic tradition and those who practiced the tantric way of worshipping deities. Of course, how do they worship, how do they follow the tantric worship? They don't believe in caste system, they don't believe in class system, they believe that everyone, that is men and women, all are equal. They believed like that, isn't it? So there was conflict between the people who worshipped the Vedic deities as well as the Vedic tradition, as well as the people who worship tantric, those who followed tantric worship. Okay, there was a conflict between the people who followed Vedic traditions and the people who followed tantric worship, because it is entirely different. Okay, in Vedic text, the caste system, class system, the deities, etc. are very different than the tantric worship. So conflicts arose. Those who valued Vedic tradition often condemned the practices that went beyond the performance of sacrifices and chanting of mantras. See, of course, in Vedic text, how could we worship the gods and goddesses? Through sacrifices as well as chanting of mantras. Chanting of mantras. See, even if I go to temple now, and if I wanted to do a Pushpanjali or something like that, Archana or something like that, the priests, they will chant mantras which I don't understand at all. Even in now, 21st century, I don't understand. So what will happen at that time? See, at that time, people don't understand all these things, isn't it? So because of that, there were conflicts between people who followed the Vedic tradition and the people who followed this tantric worship. Why? Because Vedic texts gave utmost importance for performance of the sacrifice as well as chanting of mantras. Whereas in tantric worship, it was entirely different. They don't believe in caste, they don't believe in class, they don't want to follow the traditions which were followed by the Brahmins as well as the priests and the rulers. So because of these things, there were conflicts. Okay. On the other hand, those who engaged in tantric practices ignored the authority of the Vedas. Of course, why did they make this Dharma Sutras, Dharma Shastras, Manusmriti, etc.? Because to showcase the importance of the Brahmins, isn't it? That is why Brahmins made all these rules. According to the Brahmins, from the third chapter, you remember, I believe, that Brahmins made all these things, isn't it? Dharma Shastras, Dharma Sutras, Manusmriti. Why? Because they wanted to cement the authority of Brahmins as an priest. Okay, priests were Brahmins. Okay, so that is why they made all these things. But the persons who worshipped or person who believed in tantric worship, they did not give importance to these Brahmins and priests because they don't believe in Vedas. Their mode of worship is entirely different. Okay, so conflicts arose during that time. Between whom? Between the people. That is greater tradition and little tradition. You remember that, isn't it? So the people who worshipped or who believed in Vedic text as well as people who believed in tantric worship. Conflict arose at that particular time. Okay, now see this. The tradition of devotion or bhakti need to be located within this context. Within which context? This great tradition and little tradition. Okay. Devotional worship had a long history of almost 1,000 years before the period we are considering. See, which period we are studying? between 8th century and 17th century. So do you think that all these things happened at the start of 8th century? No, it is not like that. It was there from time immemorial. Okay, so these things were going towards a culmination by 8th century. By 8th century, this Bhakti movement started. I told you earlier, it started in South India and spread slowly across North India and East India. Okay. During this time, expressions of devotion ranged from the routine worship of deities within temples to ecstatic adoration where devotees attain a trance-like state. See, trance-like state. I told you tantric worship is entirely different from what we are used to, isn't it? When they go, see, for example, I'll tell you, Komarams, that is Velichapad in temples and all. Once they believe that the deity will enter their body and then they will go into a trance-like situation, isn't it? They don't understand what is happening around them. It is like that, isn't it? So, an ecstasy. Some feeling of ecstasy will come into them. Okay, a trance-like situation. You understand what trance-like situation is, isn't it? So they will go into a trance, just like that. Okay, see you see in let me say Jodha Akbar. I think most of you have seen Jodha Akbar, isn't it? In that film, one Sufi song is there. Do you remember that Sufi song? And at the end, do you remember how Akbar danced as if he is in a trance? Do you remember that? Yes, that is it. See, expressions of devotion range from the routine worship of deities within temples to ecstatic adoration where devotees attain a trance-like state. See, when we go to temple and pray, of course, we get, we believe in God and we get something, isn't it? We get a feeling of happiness or something like that. It will come to us, but we won't go into a trance. But these people, that is those people who are worshipping, following tantric worship, they go into a trance, the highest form of ecstasy. Understand? Then, the singing and chanting of devotional compositions was often a part of such modes of worship. See, when they sing and dance, that is what I said, the example. I told you the example of that Jodha Akbar, isn't it? See, at the end of that singing and dancing, what happens? All the people who were singing and dancing and Akbar, who was hearing this singing and watching this dance, he also went into a trance-like situation and he also began to dance with those people. So, in this form of worship, singing and dancing is also very important. Understand? Now, this was particularly true of the Vaishnava and Shaiva sects. See, as I told you, see, in the earlier time, it was not like that. But in the Vaishnava sects as well as Shaivism, this type of singing and dancing is a must. Okay, and after that, after singing and dancing for a long time, they will go into a trance-like situation. So, that is the conflict which we were talking about, isn't it? In Vedic text, it is not like that. The bhakti in a pure form. Okay. Whereas in this tantric worship, it is not like that. They go into a trance-like situation. They sing, they dance, and afterwards they go into a trance-like situation. Okay. Now see this, forms of prayer, early traditions of bhakti. The historians of religion classified bhakti traditions into two broad categories, that is saguna with attributes and nirguna without attributes. See, in the early time it was divided into two. This form of different forms of bhakti were divided into two. What is that? Saguna and nirguna. What do you mean by saguna and nirguna? Saguna means people praying to God, and that is, we have a particular picture or idol in front of us. Usually when we go to temple or church, in church the idol of Jesus Christ will be there, or Mother Mary will be there. If we go to temple, then the this idol of Vishnu, Shiva, whichever God we are praying, it will be there, isn't it? This is known as Saguna Bhakti. That is, there is an idol or a picture in front of us and we pray to them. For example, Raidas, Surdas, Meera, and most of the people in India and all over the world, we believe in Saguna Bhakti, isn't it? Because in our mind there will be an idol or a picture of the God. That is known as Saguna Bhakti. So what do you mean by Nirguna Bhakti? In Nirguna Bhakti, this idol worshipping will not be there. They are praying. They believe that there is a supreme power. Okay, they believe that there is a supreme power, but for them, there won't be any idols, there won't be any pictures like that. Okay, children, so we will continue this in the next period. Okay, bye.